NOAA breached its own rules on scientific integrity when it published the sensational but flawed report, aimed at making the maximum possible impact on world leaders at the UN Climate Conference in Paris in 2015. This study was based on misleading and unverified data. Certain people in the Congress had a sense that there was something very fishy about this study. They subpoenaed, they wanted information, they wanted to talk to the people involved. NOAA refused, they just didn't allow that. So what they came up with was 3 times higher than any other warming trend measured from ocean records prior. And then it was presented to the entire world in the lead up to this UN Paris Climate Summit, where there was a major push to get governments to agree on, carbon reduction agreements. So it was clearly politically motivated. They don't tell you where the graph came from. They don't tell you what methods went into the graph. They hide the data that went into the graph, and the computers mysteriously crash when you try and get into the data behind the graph. But if you question the graph, you're called a science denier. It's absolutely absurd. So this new expose is excellent. It pulls the curtain in how you have fake news, what is literally fake presentations of reality, presented in the name of science. And then people with the gall to say that anybody questioning that is a denier of science.
Global warming really has become a new religion because you can't discuss it. It's not proper. The American Physical Society, which I was a member, said the evidence is incontrovertible that global warming exists. Now think about that. This is a physical society, and they say you cannot discuss global warming because we believe it's happening. Global warming really starts with these 2 people, Al Gore and Curry. From 1880 to 2015, the temperature has increased from 288 to 288.8 degrees Kelvin, 0.3%. I think the temperature has been amazingly stable. There has never been as cold on the South Pole as it is right now. There's more ice than there ever have been. But people don't talk about that. They talk about the North Pole, where they have a warmer climate at the present time. Now, this is the what they have come up with, however, and this is for the last 19 years, roughly speaking, the temperature has not gone up. Nobody mentioned in nature how important the CO2 is for plant growth. If you have more CO2, the plant grows faster. People use greenhouses and put CO2 in greenhouses to get a higher yield. But now, since the CO2 has increased, we get more plant and more grows faster. It's a wonderful thing. But they don't talk about how good it is for agriculture that CO2 is increasing. When I ask people then, why is the climate change? Why? The temperature has not changed, so why do they talk about it? Another thing which amazes me really is that when they talk about climate change, it's always to the worse. See, the climate also changes to the better. For the last 100 years, the ocean has risen 20 centimeters. But for the previous 100 years, it also rose to 20 centimeters. And for the last 300 years, ocean has risen 20 centimeters 100 years. And so there is no unusual rise in the sea level. But see, what people say is not true. So here is then what we should worry about. This is refugees trying to cross the Mediterranean. And so this is a boat, and these people are not fleeing from global warming, they're fleeing from poverty. If we want to help Africa, we should help them out of poverty. Syrian refugees, there are supposed to be 5 million of them. And I ask you, are you wasting money on the climate like solar cell and windmills rather than helping people? It's really very hard for me to understand that almost every government in Europe are worried about global warming. It must be politics. See, I would say that the global warming basically is a non-problem. Just leave it alone, take care of itself.
country itself doesn't care about the people. That's what we know. I mean, the government doesn't care about the actual individual. There have been bailouts in Greece where the people had to suffer as a result of the CDS and other derivatives, other banking fraud which has taken place and has destroyed that country. As a result of all of this, the IMF has basically taken over. This is the best example of tyranny that you will see, economic tyranny. And they will undoubtedly take every measure possible to make sure that they get every one of those precious assets. That's what's happening in Greece. They are being raped and pillaged of everything valuable. Their sovereignty, just like every other country basically to a different degree, has lost their sovereignty to these supranational entities, one of them being the IMF. Why? Because they want them to be part of this global governance package. And that right there is the ultimate goal, to get everyone under control of the hands of the few. This is the plan. I mean, they're doing the same thing in Spain, they're doing the same thing in Italy, they're doing the same thing in Portugal. I mean, all over the world they do it. And it's very successful for those in control because you punish the countries, you make people poor, you increase unemployment, and people get desperate. This is the way that you transfer wealth from the middle class and the poor to the wealthy. It's been working for so long now, and they're just continuing this process.
Do you see the EU collapsing?
I do believe it is collapsing right now. I think that you can't hold together an EU with basically Germany at the helm. It's just not going to work. The countries may fall away, but then actually it will snowball into something even bigger, even worse. I don't know how it can survive. The only way that the powers that be would let this happen is if they have that solution already prepared. In the end, you will have a new monetary system, and that would allow them to have even more collaboration and consolidation of power.
They would revive gas chambers and concentration camps if they weren't ashamed. That is their mentality. They are disturbed when they say that this is Nazi mentality.
We cannot accept that our citizens are incited against each other with Nazi comparisons. This is the case for all countries in Europe. That's why we should say with clear words to Mr. Erdogan that he cannot continue like this.
Seems at the moment like each new week brings a new barrage of Nazi name-calling coming from Ankara, from Turkey towards European nations. We've also seen that one of the main Turkish newspapers run with a front cover depicting German Chancellor Angela Merkel as Adolf Hitler. Mr. Erdogan in Ankara is trying to push through, or at least pushes Parliament towards voting for a bill that would bring back the death penalty in his country.
I believe, God willing, that after the referendum the Parliament will do the necessary thing concerning the people's demands for capital punishment. As for me, I will approve it without any hesitation.
If the death penalty is reintroduced in Turkey, that would lead to the end of negotiations.
The European Union and several countries in Europe are bringing back the atmosphere of World War II. The same racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, and anti-Semitism.
These type of things have been described on Monday morning as simply unacceptable by the German Chancellor. And that's resulted in some of the harshest diplomatic language, well, certainly not diplomatic language at all, coming from all sides.
Trump's just continuing this same agenda, and I think it's all moving towards the same ultimate goal. It's all about kickstarting this war with Iran, which is going to turn the whole Middle East into a complete schmozzle. It'll probably end up in the destruction of Israel as well. Israel's been put there to create this instability mechanism, posture against Iran, to create this whole war of terror and just escalate the agenda. The situation in Yemen, the situation in Syria, he's not calling any of this out for what it is. Why is he expanding military funding and all of this when he could be reducing it and calling the war of terror out for what it is? Really, I mean, ISIS, if he says he wants to defeat ISIS, where does ISIS come from? It's a private mercenary army funded by DynCorp and the Clinton Foundation, all completely provable through Hillary Clinton's own emails. Why isn't he calling that out for what it is? You know, I would suggest he should be freezing the assets of DynCorp and the Clinton Foundation, using that money to rebuild Syria and Libya. This would stop the refugee influx into Europe straight away. All these people want to go home. Let's give them homes that they can go home to rather than keep continuing to bomb their country under the pretext of defeating ISIS. The anti-Muslim rhetoric we're hearing, they're still promoting the concept that the war of terror is being run by Muslim extremists when it's not. They didn't carry out the 9/11 attacks, that they're not carrying out all of this stuff we're seeing. All of the countries that have been subject to the most terrorism in the world are countries in the Middle East. Before we invaded Iraq, there was never one suicide bombing there. Now there's been like over 1,000 suicide bombings since the US invaded. And when you go and bomb these countries and you kill these families, you create terrorists. Yeah. Because people want revenge for you bombing my sister and blowing up my mother. I want to come and strap a bomb to myself and blow you up. That's how you create terrorism, and that's what we're seeing, just a continuation of the same thing. It's the same New World Order agenda. What Trump could end up doing with this is creating a confrontation whereby you end up with three major superpowers, the United States, Russia, and China. That's what will be left after this, and the whole Middle East will just be a complete schmozzle to be divided up. And that's the way it seems to be going. It seems to be the same agenda, just being taken from a different approach, a different perspective. I think the Trump presidency is a huge opportunity for the American people to put aside this left-right paradigm, see how they're being played in this divide and conquer, and realize that if they now unite as one people and look at this man and hold him accountable for his actions, they can actually move forward. I mean, hopefully you'll do the right thing, but I'm just not seeing it. I want to have hope in this man, but I'm just not seeing it in his foreign policies, and that's what people have to look at. And I was kind of surprised when Trump got in, but now when I look back at it, no, I think it was all play. I think it was all one big play. So hopefully people are going to seize this opportunity and come together and create a better future. I mean, it's anybody's guess where we're going to go with this. Trump's a total wild card.
Could you give me some examples of the military aggression that your country has suffered from Russia in the last 10 years?
Well, probably the most prominent example is the kidnapping of the equivalent of our FBI, who was investigating a massive cross-border cigarette smuggling operation.
Right. I mean military aggression.
Well, we have constant violations of our border by military jets. That's one thing, and that's consistent. And
I went to the Baltics about 3 years ago after I hear story after story after story of Russian military aggression in the Baltics. I'm sure all of you have heard that slogan before. Not one report of actual military aggression. And here we are sending our tanks up there, having B-52 mock raids on Russia over Estonia toward the Soviet capital in the name of stopping Soviet military aggression that never existed. This has got to stop or we're going to end up in war.
System can really be great for emergencies, for example. And I'm not saying that the men and women that are in the medical industry are all bad. A lot of them are misinformed. They go to these universities and they're being indoctrinated themselves. But to fully understand how we got to where we're at today and just how corrupt and broken this medical system is, we have to go back in time over 100 years. You will see and you will find out that our current medical system is actually a Rockefeller creation. Now, the Rockefeller Foundations teamed up with the Carnegie Foundations, and they offered huge grants to open up the best medical schools all over the country. Now, the only stipulations that went along with these huge, generous grants and donations was the provision that only an allopathic-based curriculum be taught, and that some of their agents from the foundations were allowed to sit on the board of directors of these medical schools. Now, by having their own handpicked people placed, they were able to determine the curriculum. They were able to remove any kind of reference to any natural or herbal treatments. Now, fast forward to today. We live in such extremely toxic environments that it's no wonder that cancer rates are skyrocketing. Everything from our food, our water, our air, our work environments, our home environments, all extremely toxic. And the fascistic partnership between corporations and governments allows these companies to get away with murder, literally, all the while making record profits. Now, the medical system of today is not in the business of creating cures. They are in the business of creating customers and sucking every last dime out of them.
All that needs to be done to prescribe somebody a drug is when you walk into the office and you say, I'm feeling depressed or something like that, and then you get a drug. So it's a perfect scenario for pharmaceutical companies to capitalize on. The current DSM has 374 mental disorders in there, 943 pages. What's disturbing, though, is they now have a DSM for 0 to 3, which means they're able to diagnose mental illness in children from 0 to 3.
Age 0.
Age 0 to 3. They want every single person in the United States and in the world on some sort of psychotropic drug. It's a $330 billion industry. The reason why they want to do it is they want to keep you dumbed down. They want to be able to seize everything from you or take away all your power, because it's been proven in court cases that if someone is labeled with mental illness, they're not capable to vote. The voting powers have been taken away from them. Their money has been taken away from them. All of their rights have been stripped from them because they've been classified with mental illness. Most teens, by the time they're 18, have gone through, from the time of 0 to 18, have gone through up to 12 mental illness screenings that go on their record forever. And 9 out of 10 kids are prescribed a drug after they take the teen screen. Psychiatric drugs now are killing an estimated 3,000 people every single month. So there's population control efforts there as well. They're putting fluoride in the water. They're poisoning the air we breathe. They're poisoning the food that we eat. They're poisoning the water that we drink. Everything that we're exposed to in our environment is poison. Most of those are brain damaging, neurological damaging compounds that create you, cause you to be depressed, cause you to have mood swings, cause you to have hyperactivity. Then they give you these psychotropic drugs to try to balance it out, which just makes the problem even worse.
You didn't get cancer overnight. Cancer is a process of 10 years, 12 years.
I mean, within 8 years you get the tumor. Sometimes people don't get diagnosis until 10, 12 years. So they kind of tend to scare the patients and they get worried, they don't have time to research, then they start the chemo, and otherwise the doctors would tell them they're gonna die or it's gonna spread everywhere.
So it's really almost a process of creating fear to get them on the treatments quickly.
Correct. And we need to educate people. We need to tell them there's other ways to go. Going with the conventional surgery, radiation, chemo is not the way to go. There is other ways you could do. And also you could do surgery, but no, don't rush into it. Improve the immune system, boost your body before you do surgery. Because any cut, any kind of surgery in the body, it will suppress the immune system, and also it will attract all the good white blood cell, all your good cells into that area. Then what happens? All those cancer cells that are already floating in your body, they keep growing.
Is so unbelievably different in what really happens to that people perceive is happening. It's like a spider's web. There's a spider at the center. That's where the whole agenda is coming from. And then you go out from the spider. Close to the spider, you've got the strands in the web that are the most exclusive secret societies, and then you get secret societies that we know about, and eventually you are coming into the public arena where you have government agencies and corporations and the banking system. And because this satanic pedophile ring at its core, I keep emphasizing, is controlled and driven by those that drive this web of global manipulation. This is why it's the often very rich and very famous that are named by people who have been subjected to those horrors of pedophilia and Satanism. And this cult, this satanic cult, it's infiltrated the police, it's infiltrated the judiciary, it's infiltrated social services, which is why more and more children are being taken by social services worldwide, not least in Britain and America, from loving parents for spurious reasons. It's all connected. This is why so many police have described how when they got close to famous people within these pedophile rings they were investigating, that someone up high said, the investigation ends. This is how it works. The world is not like we think it is. And we need to start getting rid of the naivety and realize that there are forces at work in this world that they don't want us to know about.
These rings are rings within rings. In the end, it's a global network. The range of what you uncover just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and expands out and out and out. And it certainly leaves Britain, goes into Europe, goes across to America, and eventually encompasses the globe. Because one of the things that I came across many years ago, right back in the 90s, was the scale of the number of children that go missing every year, never to be seen again. In America alone, it's staggering. It is a stunning global figure, which goes into the millions if you add them all up. I'm sure, there's no question about that. Most of them are never heard of again, and it's all just forgotten. I mean, in many countries, no one even bothers to look for them. And to understand the scale of child abuse, the scale of missing children, the scale of satanic ritual killing of children, we need to understand the force behind this global conspiracy that operates from the shadows and why it wants the energy of children. These entities feed off human energy. And because, like everything with energy, the energy of different frequencies syncs with energy of the same frequency. And thus, these entities, to absorb human energy, have to have energy that is within the frequency range they can absorb. And it seems to me that this relates to low vibrational human emotion, that relates to fear, to frustration, to depression, to frustration, all these things. The emotion that leads to violence is in wars, conflicts, individual and collective, all this energy that they absorb. And but there's a particular energy that is like a nectar to them, and that is the energy of children before puberty. And it's that energy that these entities most want to absorb, what most want to have as a food source, a power source. And so what's happening to these children, a large number of them, I suggest, a very large number, end up in sacrificial rituals. They end up being in pedophile rings and stuff like that, and they're having their energy vampired. If you follow some of these major names in the conspiracy and you follow them through in terms of investigation and research, secret societies always come up, Satanism always comes up with the top people, and so does pedophilia.
I was raised in Belgium and sold into a murderous pedophile network right around my 6th birthday. I was used in this network for 5 years and a half. In that time, I was raped many, many, many times. Adult men that were part of this exclusive club were there for various reasons, but there was a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, and the children were the commodity, the highest, the most valued commodity, and were used for sex mostly. But there were a number of aristocrats that were part of this club who also liked killing children.
esta es una reflexión en torno a uno de los grandes temas de nuestro tiempo, los portales dimensionales. Existe la posibilidad de que se estén generando en nuestro planeta verdaderos portales dimensionales. Así lo sugieren las extraordinarias evidencias que se han podido obtener en diferentes lugares del mundo. Uno de los sueños más grandes de los seres humanos podría hacerse real, poder viajar a las profundidades del cosmos de forma instantánea. La existencia de los llamados portales dimensionales ha sido prácticamente confirmada por la ciencia. El 20 de enero de 2005, una explosión de grandes proporciones en el Sol expulsó altas cantidades de partículas solares que llegaron a la Tierra en tan solo 8 minutos, aunque deberían de haber llegado en más de 24 horas. Los científicos quedaron confundidos. No existía una verdadera explicación. En 2008, la misión Temis de la NASA confirmó la existencia de portales magnéticos que se abren conectando a la Tierra y el Sol. Aparentemente, las partículas viajaron por uno de estos portales, acortando su viaje del Sol a la Tierra en más de 24 horas. Desde entonces, sabemos que se trata de una realidad. Aún debemos aprender a utilizar estas puertas dimensionales para viajar en el espacio.
Civilizaciones extraterrestres avanzadas podrían haber desarrollado formas inimaginables de transportarse a través del tiempo y el espacio, que les haya permitido llegar hasta nosotros. Los agujeros de gusano son un atajo en el espacio-tiempo descrito por primera vez en la teoría general de la relatividad de Albert Einstein junto a Nathan Rosen, en que dos extremos del universo se conectan por un túnel donde la materia podría desplazarse. Aunque los científicos consideran que a través de los puentes Einstein-Rosen también se podría viajar de un universo a otro paralelo, o incluso se podría viajar a través del tiempo. Los astrofísicos han comprobado que a través de un agujero de gusano también se podría viajar más rápido que la luz, permitiendo con ello desplazarse a cualquier parte del universo en cuestión de instantes. En 2014, el Dr. Lucas Butcher, de la Universidad de Cambridge, aseguró que si uno de los estrechos de un agujero de gusano permanece abierto el tiempo suficiente, el hombre podría enviar mensajes a cualquier parte del cosmos, o a través del tiempo, a un pasado lejano, o incluso al futuro, utilizando pulsos de luz. Y en ese mismo año, un equipo de científicos de la Universidad Fudan, en China, publicaron un estudio que sugiere que en el centro de la Vía Láctea no hay un agujero negro supermasivo como se pensaba, sino que hay un agujero de gusano, lo que permitiría que las civilizaciones tecnológicamente avanzadas pudieran desplazarse a cualquier parte de la galaxia, o incluso del universo, hasta la Tierra. Los agujeros de gusano o puentes Einstein-Rosen podrían ser la forma en que civilizaciones de otros mundos, otros universos e incluso de otro tiempo puedan desplazarse hasta la Tierra, permitiendo que sus objetos voladores no identificados aparezcan y desaparezcan en solo instantes.
¿Podrían estos portales dimensionales generarse de manera natural en la Tierra?
Existe un caso muy bien documentado de un piloto que relató haber entrado en un portal dimensional. Ocurrió el 4 de diciembre de 1970, cuando el piloto Bruce Gernon despegó de la isla Andros rumbo a Florida. Atravesando el Triángulo de las Bermudas, una fuerza lo hizo viajar a través del tiempo, porque llegó a su destino en solo 47 minutos, cuando su vuelo duraba 75 minutos. Otro caso de un portal dimensional ocurrió el 31 de enero de 1978, en el vuelo 502 de Aerolíneas Aviaco, en ruta de Valencia a Bilbao. Cuando se aproximaban al aeropuerto de Bilbao, fueron desviados por mal tiempo. De súbito se formó una nube luminosa, a través de la cual pasó el avión. El vuelo 502 aterrizó 17 minutos después de lo que estaba programado, como si su avión Caravelle 10R se hubiera quedado suspendido sin volar en el mismo lugar. Estos casos demostrarían la existencia de portales dimensionales que se abren en el Triángulo de las Bermudas y en otros lugares del mundo.
Recientemente se han videograbado fenómenos que sugieren la presencia de portales magnéticos en nuestro planeta. Un hecho que, a pesar de no haber sido confirmado científicamente, no tiene aún una verdadera explicación. Resulta indudable que aún tenemos mucho que aprender, que apenas estamos dando pequeños pasos de bebé en nuestra exploración cósmica.
rate is about 70 beats per minute, but it's changing with every beat. These beat-to-beat changes in heart rate create a pattern. The pattern of the heart rhythm is what's informing the brain. And we found from other neurocardiology research that the heart actually has its own little brain inside that can sense, feel, learn, and remember its own intrinsic nervous system, and it wasn't really discovered until the 1990s. So if you look at this, you can see that the signals from the heart going through the vagal nerve to the brain are actually going right to the thalamus, which synchronizes cortical function, and then to the frontal lobes, and they're going straight to the amygdala, the emotional memory center. And the core cells of the amygdala actually synchronize to the heartbeat. So what we're feeling and what the heart rhythm pattern is doing is affecting what emotional memories come up. So stress and anxiety can come up, trigger the brain pattern match to an anxiety habit. Loving, caring, practicing heart coherence, that becomes more familiar. And the brain and the amygdala respond as a pattern matching computer. So what's exciting about this is that we really are finding that there's a state of the heart, a physiological state called heart rate variability coherence, that we can train ourselves into to help change our baseline brain response to stress and our connection with our higher intuitive guidance. It's a big paradigm shift that the brain isn't controlling everything. That the heart actually sends more signals to the brain telling the brain what to do than the brain sends to the heart. Most of the traffic from heart to brain, 90% of it is afferent from the heart and the body. So picture heart intelligence as the flow of awareness that happens when the heart, brain, mind, and emotions are in coherent alignment. And that gives us connection more with the intuitive guidance. What gets us into heart coherent state more and more? It's that sincere shift out of the mind to the heart, like that beautiful meditation, letting it really shift to the heart center and really putting out love, care, compassion, kindness, appreciation. That increases what we call personal coherence. And as we increase our personal coherence, remember when we get stressed or angry and frustrated or worried, which is easy to do these days, we live on this planet and look what's happening. How do we learn to shift back quickly? How do we train ourselves so we have more of a strong baseline to get us back there quickly during the day-to-day, not just during meditations? If every heartbeat is putting out a powerful energy, that's what powers the brain and body, and it's beating what we're feeling in that heart rhythm pattern out into the world around us. So think of the heart's magnetic field as like transmitting the heart's pattern and information like a radio wave, like a radio station. We are affecting each other's fields all the time. That means we can affect each other. We all know that intuitively, but to see it measured and to see how strong a role the heart plays in it, actually a priori to the brain, that means we all really need to pay attention to what's going on in our heart and our feelings. That human cognitive functions and emotions and behaviors are affected by each other's magnetic fields. And the Earth's magnetic fields are carriers of biologically relevant information connecting all life together and forming all life. And so we're all affecting this global information fields. Large numbers of people getting in this true heart coherent state of love, care, appreciation in their synchronized meditations can have a more dramatic impact on the Earth's fields and benefit others and really help offset the planetary stress wave that's going on in the field. So this entrainment of our heart and brain and this entrainment between each other can lift the field environment and so lift the vibration of the field In fact, coherence is understood in physics terms all the way at the quantum level, down to nature, into the human level. We can see coherence at every level. And that links us to other dimensions, which is what we all need. Like a laser light is coherent photons, much more powerful than incandescent light. So we can access that potential within ourselves. A first step for all of us to raise the vibration of the collective field environment is taking more responsibility for our own energies and what we're feeding the field each day, making it easier for others to connect with their higher potentials and increase joy.